Hello everybody and welcome back to Triple Crown Wargaming with me, the Chieftain, where once again we're going to be diving into a sort of first impressions, first look at an army for the fast approaching Old World game, which as of time of recording this is going to be released at the end of this week, Saturday the 20th of January. Happy days, finally it's here, 4.5 years of waiting are finally coming to an end. But as we go through that, we're just going to be going through sort of first impressions, first look at what we've seen of some of the armies so far. And today we're going to be looking at the Orcs and Goblins tribe. Now, when I say first impressions, first look at, I obviously mean I'm just going to go through some of the potato cam images and videos we've all seen online on YouTube, on Facebook, on the general internet in itself, and just go from there. So please feel free to join me as I try and muddle my way through some of these images that are blurry as hell. So one of the first main impressions I got from the Orcs and Goblins is that the main army list in itself has changed a little bit, in the fact that Savage Orcs are no longer a separate choice for the Orcs and Goblins army. No longer are they a take-all choice for an all-Savage Orc army. You have to upgrade one of your Orc units to be Savage Orcs, and they are limited to 1 per 1,000 points. So realistically, if you're taking a 2,000 point army, which seems to be the main staple for many armies out there, you're only going to be taking 2 units of Savage Orcs. Now, they can be upgraded to be big uns, as per normal from what I've seen. So you still get all the benefits of big uns, which I can't remember off the top of my head what it does. Hopefully it does the same thing, of just giving you +1 strength and weapon skill, but I can't be certain, to be honest, guys. I do apologise for that one. I'm not entirely sure what it does anymore. But yes, Savage Orcs as themselves are gone. So you can still make the Savage Orc unit, being making big uns. You still make a big unit, but it does gain frenzy, obviously. And so you do, I mean, you lose Impetuous, but you then gain Frenzy, which is the worst form of Impetuous from what I've seen. But you do get +1 attack. So you do get a good heap of attacks from the bigger new Savage Orc unit. But the fact you are limited to the units you managed to take is a bit of a bummer. So that is one of the first main impressions that I did get. The fact that Orc mobs are now probably going to be the mainstay for a lot of armies out there means that they're probably going to have to bring back the regular Orc unit as a kit, because they no longer exist in Old World, not Old World, in AOS. The only Orc units that you can buy are Black Orcs and Savage Orcs. So in the future, if people do want to be using their old using an Orcs and Goblins army and not be limited to 2 units of Orcs that have upgraded to Savages, they're going to have to bring back the kits as it is anyway, which is a nice change. I don't actually own many of the old Orc kits. I think I own about 20, maybe 30 of them. So I have enough, but they're not painted, they're not ready. So I am probably upgrading one of my units to Savages anyway. So just hopefully it makes it a little bit easier to run the army in itself. One of the next changes I did see is that Black Orcs seem to be taking quite a big front row seat in many Orcs and Goblins army. For 2 reasons, that is, to be honest. From what I've seen, the image of the Grand Army, you can take 0 to 1 Black Orc War Bosses, Orc War Bosses, or Orc Weird Knobs per 1,000 points. Now, I'm assuming the Orc Weird Knobs are the Orc Great Shamans. So they give them a new name, new title, and gone from there. But the fact if you take one Black Orc, if you take a Black Orc War Boss, or if your general is a Black Orc boss, 0 to 1 Black Orc mobs may be taken as a core choice, which is very nice. I do love the fact that Black Orcs are getting a bit of time in the sun. I think they were one of the coolest units in 8th edition. They just weren't all that great. I didn't think they were bad. They just they gave out as good as they got, and they got pummeled usually in most combats they were involved in the fact that they usually got one big round of combat in before they were reduced to a little under fighting strength as it was. So the fact that you can take one as your core choice means that they are now not just points you're sinking elsewhere. They can now be your compulsory points that you're spending in an army. One thing I did see as well is that Black Orcs in themselves do seem to have a rule called, if I can find some of the images, is Quell Impetuosity. No longer is it quell animosity, because that's another big thing I'll go in a second, is special rules for the Orcs and Goblins, is quell impetuosity. Now, this is just a general rule on Black Orc mobs themselves. This is not just Black Orc characters anymore. So it does feel like it's just going to be a rule that you're going to be seeing around for the Black Orcs. Hopefully, it does help some way in one of the rules I do see when I go on in a second. I'm not entirely sure what quell impetuosity does, but it does seem it might be quite good for controlling your army. Black Orcs in themselves also have, from what I've seen, Furious Charge and Ignore Panic. So the Ignore Panic, I think, will probably just mean they ignore panic tests from other units around them. So they no longer have Immunopsychology, which is a little bit on the downside, I suppose. It does mean that they could possibly flee from a terror test, or they can fail a charge because of fear. But at least they ignore panic, which is another thing going around. It does feel like they're trying to dig into that whole psychology is a massive game changer in this game now. Because from what I've also seen and just going through some pictures of the rulebook, Battle Center Bearers no longer let you reroll fear, terror, and panic. It's not just a general blanket leadership reroll. There are specific rerolls that you are allowed to do from a Black Battle Center Bearer. So psychology does seem to take a bit of a big stand in the old world, and Black Orcs losing immune psychology might mean that's a little bit of a downside. And then going on by that as well, I've also seen that Black Orcs also have Motley Crew, which from what if you listen to my video about Beastmen, you know that Minotaurs also have Motley Crew, which means they can mix and match weapons. So again, gone is the rule of Armed to the Teeth, if I remember it correctly, it was called, in which Black Orcs can use a variety of shield, hand weapons, great weapons, additional hand weapons. Be one of those things out there. They now have Motley Crew. So by the looks of it, you're going to have to buy the additional weapons that you want to have on the models, and then you get to mix and match your weapons in the unit. A bit of a weird one. I don't know how that's going to work out in-game as it is. I suppose we'll just have to see how that works out. But it could be cool. It could be a bit of a change. And what also and as alluded to just previously about 5 minutes ago, is the change in special rules that the Orcs and Goblins have. And a massive one is that the infamous rule of animosity is gone. Animosity no longer exists. It's not a special rule from what I've seen and many of the images I've seen surrounding on the internet. Animosity as a whole is now out of it. No longer we have to roll a d6 for what all your units have animosity on the table. If you roll a 1, then something bad will happen. If you roll a 2+, everything will be good. From what I've seen, this is now replaced by basically an army-wide blanket of impetuous on a lot of your Orc units. Now, impetuous is basically, I believe, if you are able to charge with one of your units, you have to roll a dice. On a 1 to 3, you have to charge. On a 4+, you get to restrain from charging. Now, I'm not sure I'm a fan of this rule. It does mean that a lot of your units are basically on a 50-50 whether they pull themselves out of position. I'd much rather the old animosity in which you roll a dice. If you roll a 1, then you might charge, you might stick around. On a 1 to 3 now, you might just pull yourself out of position and get flank charged. That's never going to be a good idea. That's never going to be a good move for yourself. It may give you some good options in getting some of those long bomb charges and get some quite interesting plays coming out. But the fact that it's on a 50-50 chance that you could pull yourself out, I'm not a big fan, if I'm honest. I think impetuous is going to be a very detrimental rule. We've seen on quite a few models quite a few units out there at the moment, from what I've seen. The big one mainly being Dragon Princes, I believe, going by the Lawmaster's video. But having an army-wide impetuous is not a good thing, if you ask me. So hopefully the quell impetuosity rule that the Black Orcs do have, hopefully that does help quell that and make your armies easier to control. And it might mean the Black Orcs are quite a big, strong point in your army as it is holding your battle lines and keeping the mobs in sort of in check. Another one that I'd seen, a first impression, that's quite a big one that a lot of people did notice when I put out my video about the impending base sizes change that are going to be affecting a lot of the armies, is the fact that Mangler squigs are no longer on circular bases. Manglers are now on square bases. Whereas Fanatics from the Night Goblin mobs, they are still on the round bases. So it makes me think whether we are going to see Mangler squigs take a more direct role in the game, whether they are not just a big, massive fanatic, whether they're actually like a combat monster. That's going to be a big change for a lot of people. So hopefully it won't be too big of a change that makes the Manglers a little bit worse. But how they work in combat, I can't say for sure. It's going to be interesting to see them actually play themselves out on the battlefield. Again, whether or not I think this is a good change, I'm yet to see. I'm yet to make my own decision up on it. It could be good. It could be good seeing the old manglers on some form of square base. I believe it's not even that big of a square base. I think it's only like a 50 by 50, maybe 50 by 75. I'm not entirely sure. It does seem like a smaller base. That's for certain. The circular base they were on was quite large, especially if you had the newer mangler that they made, the newer plastic mangler that they made for AOS. Then seeing that fit on quite a tiny 50 by 50 is weird. I'm honest, guys. It's going to be a really weird change to see those on what is frankly a tiny base for a huge model. But whether or not how that plays in game, I'm not entirely sure. So we're going to have to see how that works out. So manglers are still going on the squares. Some other bits and pieces I did see. I did see that shamans, that orcs and goblin shamans, no longer have only have access to war magic. I've seen that they do have access to a couple more laws of magic, which is all quite cool. From what I can see from the images online, is that orc shamans have access apparently to battle magic, elementalism, and war magic. So war magic is still in. It's still a thing for all orcs and goblins armies. It does seem that it does appear to be that laws of the big war and little war are no longer two separate things. They've been combined into one sort of amalgamated law for war magic. So at least they have access to the same spells as each other. Does mean there's a little less flavour in the shaman you take. I don't know how much of a fan I am on that. I did enjoy the idea of having a level 4 on Little War and a couple of level 2s on Big War. Made for a bit of a change and made some different dynamics in what your shamans could cast. But they've sort of balanced out, I suppose, with the access to battle magic and elementalism. So there is that as well. So I haven't really looked at the spells themselves, the spell laws in detail. That's going to be something for what I'm going to go through when the books eventually come out and I get to read my own one. But what the best law for the orcs is, I can't say for sure. But I'm going to assume it's going to be wild magic, because who doesn't like casting wild magic with your orc shamans? And some of the other bits and pieces beyond that. I've not really gone through a lot of the orc stuff I've seen online. I've only really read through a lot of the Beastman rules and Warriors of Chaos rules that I can find, and the videos I've just watched a good couple hundred times at this point in time, and pause each screen to read what I can read from the potato camps. But yeah, beyond that, again, also another one I've seen, going back to the Grand Army, that is a good big one, is that you can only take one Night Goblin unit per Night Goblin Chief or Night Goblin Shaman. So, and that's the same for Night Goblin Squig Herds as well. So, it does feel like you're being hemmed into taking generic orcs as the mainstay core of your army. It does feel like they are taking a lot of flavour out of a specific army of orcs and goblins that you want to run. If you want to run an all Night Goblin army, you can do, but you're going to have to really focus in on taking a lot of Night Goblin characters and going from there. It's a cool idea that you now got Squig Herds in core. Very cool. I like that idea a lot. You just have to take sort of cheap as chips Night Goblin big bosses, I suppose. Which ain't the worst thing in the world, I suppose. Depending on how cheap the Night Goblin big bosses are, I can't imagine it'll be that much of a hindrance. So really cool. I like that. I like that idea a lot. But it does, as I said, does take out some of the individuality from the orc army you see running around. No longer are you going to see sort of Skarsnik leading a giant horde of all Night Goblins and stuff like that. You are going to have to see character per character, but seeing as they probably going to be cheap as chips, then it's not that big of a deal, I suppose. Yeah, the main things I have seen from the Orcs and Goblins is some changes to how you build your army, the composition of what you can take in your armies in itself. It's going to be a bit of a change. I don't know how my collection is going to look after this change. Hopefully I still have enough of what we can do. Combined with mine and James's collections of Orcs and Goblins, we should be alright. But we have to see and go from there. I've not even really looked at the Orcs and Goblins magic items and seen what they've got available to offer. I still hope that Basher's Axe of Stunty Smashing is still in, because that was mine and James, probably one of mine and James's favourite magic items throughout the Orcs and Goblins army book. Battle Axe, the last war, that might still be in. Mork's War Banner, the Lucky Shrunken Head. Have the days of the Lucky Shrunken Head gone now? Are they behind us? Who knows? Who knows if a giant... I know that hordes are pretty much out of the game right now, and smaller units are probably going to be in. But have the large units of 30 plus Savage Orc big uns, have they now gone to the wind? Are you now going to see a load of Black Orcs being surrounded by generic Orcs in themselves? Who knows? I can't wait to find out. As soon as I get my book this Saturday, I'll be going through all my armies, which is, as I said, Beastmen, Warriors, Orcs, Goblins, and High Elves. I haven't really thought about my High Elves, to be honest. I don't even know what they're going to be like in the new game. But yeah, I think that's pretty much going to be about it from me, guys. Here, there's not much I can say about the Orcs and Goblins. So I've not really, as I said, not really read through them. If you've seen more about the Orcs and Goblins, let me know in the comments below about what your sort of, not hot picks, but sort of your top takes from what you've seen on the videos and images out there, and see what you can find. And let me know below in the comments. If you disagree with some of my opinions, please, again, let me know in the comments and tell me what you think about it. But tune in for the rest of the week, where I'm sure we're going to be going through a lot of more first impressions of the remaining armies, which I think is the Wood Elves and the Warriors. Don't quote me on that. My memory is not as good as it used to be. But tune in for those. And then hopefully it's all going to be uphill from here when the old is finally released this Saturday. And we all start playing it and seeing the game for ourselves and getting a feel for it and going from there. But thank you very much for joining me today, guys. And until next time, I will see you later.
Remember to tag your friends and like, subscribe and share. Then head over to triplecrownwargaming.com and become a Knight of the Realm today.
What are you doing, mate?
You alright? Do it for Warhammer!